Welcome back in, Browns fans. Spencer German coming to you live from Everbank Stadium in Jacksonville, where the Browns earned an 18-13 win today to improve to 1-1 in the season. Anthony Moeglin, obviously alongside, back home in Cleveland, as we continue recapping what was a huge win for the Browns. Not pretty, not perfect, but a win is a win, and the Browns will take it any way they can, which we will talk about here coming up as well throughout the rest of this post-game conversation. But, Anthony, we specifically want to highlight today just the offense and Deshaun Watson in particular, because I tell you what, man, like we were promised this offense that with Ken Dorsey getting hired this offseason, a lot of the conversation revolved around, okay, you got this guy in here who likes to push the ball downfield. We did a video on that actually during the offseason when he was hired. A lot of motion, figuring out like understanding what defense is being played against you. Is it man? Is it zone? Those types of things. And we saw a lot more, maybe not so much of pushing it down the field today, but you did see moments where they did. And the bigger thing for me was that you saw the motion, which was nowhere to be seen in week one. And so, I mean, it was, from my perspective, night and day versus what you saw in week one. And it started on that opening drive where the Browns go 97 yards on 16 plays. Deshaun looks comfortable. He's moving the ball downfield. He goes 7 of 8 for 83 yards, punctuates it with the draw play touchdown from the 1 yard line. And you felt, I mean, people watching at home had to feel really good about this team and the way that they came out and how this offense was operating from the jump. And it changed after that, which we'll get to. But I just thought like that was such an important drive to sort of show, okay, this is more of what you were expecting versus what you saw last week in week one.
Yeah, and truth be told, like it was his back was against the wall. Like what was going to be the leash if they did come out and he threw a pick or they went 3 and out or it looked sloppy? Like he came out and looked really sharp. He looked like a Deshaun that we hadn't seen before. He was completing balls down the field. He was very, very accurate. Jerry Jeudy had a couple nice catches. Elijah Moore was the one that kind of got things started. And you know, those guys have been yet to get on the same page to this point. So it was awesome to see. And then to see him finish the drive, you know, punching it in after Deontay Foreman, who I thought was really good today, had that fumble on the 1 yard line. You're like, oh my gosh, we just went the entire length of the field to fumble on the 1 yard line. But they recovered it, and then he punches it in the end zone. You're like, all right, here we go. This is looking good. And it kind of stayed that way throughout the first half. I thought the first half was pretty sharp overall from the offense.
We'll talk more about Deshaun here in a second. But the other thing I think was important, and another thing that was established on that first drive, was just the run game. And I kind of thought that coming in. Like last week, they didn't have much of a chance to establish it because the Cowboys just jumped on them quickly. And then from there it was all downhill. But today, there was a point made. And it was on the first play of the game. Browns come out. And they had Zach Zinter and Nick Harris as extra linemen who are eligible for a pass if needed, as kind of extra tight ends. And they bring Deontay Foreman as the starting back, and he runs the ball down, you know, up the middle for a decent chunk of yards. And that was the Browns from the jump saying, we're going to be more physical today. We're going to run the football. And I talked to Joe Battoni in the locker room after that, and he just said, like, when we get the run game going, it is such a valuable thing for us as linemen because we love blocking for the run game, but also just the offense as a whole because you're not playing from behind on the sticks. You're able to kind of build some momentum. I thought that was on top of Deshaun just feeling like looking like he was more comfortable today. I thought like the other part of that was obviously it starts with the offensive line playing well, but the fact that they were able to establish the run game today was a game changer for this offense to be able to operate in a more fluid way and have more success.
It was everything. You know, think back to the most successful games, that the Browns have had in the recent history. It's when they're running the football. And when you're not running the football, and this is anywhere. This is Cleveland Browns. This is high school. This is college. This is anywhere. If you can run the football, it makes passing it so much easier. And they were able to do that today. They couldn't do it at all against the Dallas Cowboys last week. Today, a different story. I thought the offensive line, while they got beat up last week and they kind of, took one on the chin, they played very, very well today. They weren't perfect. And that's kind of the thing that's the theme of today. It was good. It was better. It was not perfect. It was still to go. But the offensive line was played a much better game, and they ran the football. They protected much better. And Deshaun was the beneficiary of it all. He was very accurate, very good, very comfortable all day.
Yeah, and I felt like if they could do that, he would be more comfortable. And we saw, I think, again, on that opening drive especially, we saw the benefits of that. I think Foreman had 42 yards rushing on the day. Jerome Ford, I forget the exact number off the top of my head. I think it was 70-something yards rushing, but he averaged over 12 yards per carry, I believe it was.
And he looked better. Like he looked like he was. He almost, you hate to say this, but he was running it like Nick Chubb. Like he was making cuts, and when he was making cuts, he was getting into his next step really, really quickly. He looked really good and confident today.
Well, I think I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but a nice preview, perhaps, of like what this offense could look like when Nick Chubb comes back, and you get a guy out there who you know is going to be really effective for you. If they can use that run game effectively to help with the set up the pass, I think that's huge. Now, from there, that first drive that we really highlighted, the offense I think was still pretty efficient in the first half. They had some nice moments. They put up 13 points on their first 3 drives of the game, all scoring drives. Came up a little bit short in the red zone a couple times, which or on the Jag side of the field, I should say, a couple times, which you don't necessarily love to see. They were on the bad end of that offsides penalty on the kickoff for Dustin Hopkins, which avoided a fumble that would have set him up inside the Jags red zone and probably gives him an even bigger lead in the first half. So there were some things that didn't go their way, some things that were good to see. But for them to build the lead that they built, I thought it was good. And the offense, I think, as a whole in the first half, even though you would have liked to see him put up more points, I felt pretty good about. The second half is where things were a little bit tougher. And I said this on our other video, but they were outgained 242 to 102. And to your point of it not being perfect, like this is where you saw the offense. What I'll say is it was still the offense from the first half. Like you saw the signs of life and you saw they could do some things. You saw they could move the football. But it wasn't quite as fluid as it was. And that's obviously a little bit concerning as you go into next week where it's like, okay, now you got to get it together more consistently. But I even wrote about this post game, Anthony, like to see the strides that they took as a whole, I think was what fans were looking for. We didn't expect them to fix everything in 1 week's time, but you saw signs of progress, and that's good because this time of year, I think the offense really is still trying to figure out what their identity is.
Yeah, they took leaps forward, and I think that is very positive. The first half was good, like you said. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. They look bad in the second half. But what I will kind of hang my hat on is a two-parter, right? They needed a drive at the end of the game, right? It's time. The Jags cut the lead 16-13. You need a drive. They put one together. Jerry Jeudy makes 2 really nice catches. You start running the football.
One that maybe would have been not overturned if Doug Peterson hadn't had pulled the flag out of his pocket.
Correct. So you got that one, but then you get it into plus territory, and Deontay Foreman looks like he ends the game, right? There's 1:44 left. He looks like he ends it, but he grabs the face mask on his stiff arm, gets flagged for 15-yard penalty, and then the Browns go holding. So they go from an easy chip shot field goal and potentially kneeing the ball out and ending the game to 3rd and 37 from the 50-yard line. You're like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, how did we get here? But it was all good when your back was against the wall. Got to have it scenario. They drove it down the field. Now the coaching point is finished. Just finish the game. Yeah. Finish it out with your hands on the football, and you feel really good. But
and I was really impressed with Deshaun on that drive too. Maybe to pivot the conversation to him here the rest of the way, because the things that you're looking for from Deshaun at this point, I don't know if the guy from Houston is still in there or not, and I don't know if anybody knows that guy's still in there. But in those moments, you need a drive late in the game, crunch time. Can he deliver? You were getting that today up until the face mask and then the holding that pushed him back and sort of ruined that drive. He was making some pinpoint throws. He was making some really good throws. Him and Jerry Jeudy, the connection that we saw during training camp, that was on display today. Jerry caught 5 passes for 73 yards today, so that was impressive. Like there were some moments there on that drive and in the second half that you felt like, okay, if you get this from Deshaun, this team can have success this year, and this offense can do some things. It was just unfortunate that it was spoiled by the penalties. But yeah, like I thought that was another moment for Deshaun where it was like, okay, this is a different guy than what we saw in week 1. And those are the sort of the little things, the opening drive, that drive, moments throughout where he looked more poised. Those were, I think, the signs that you were looking for from Deshaun, that he's going to at least be okay. What okay looks like, whether it's the guy from Houston or not, remains to be seen. But you at least saw some signs of progress.
And that's what you need. You said the word there, poise is the word that catches my attention. He looked like a quarterback who'd been there before. Last week, he looked like a rookie who was playing in his first game. Wasn't seeing stuff.
Bad.
It was so bad, and it was like, oh my gosh, we're in big, big trouble. But today, it's like, holy cow, he's seeing the field. He looks confident. He's delivering with anticipation. He's throwing it vertically down the field and doing it with accuracy. I thought he took a lot of strides forward. And for the offensive perspective, You got two guys that'll just continue. Well, three, I think, that'll just, when they come back to form, they'll continue to improve the offense. You got David Njoku, who come back from injury to help you out in the long run. You got Amari Cooper, who's been disappointing to this point in the first two games, who, when he catches his stride, he'll feel really good. And then when Nick Chubb is able to go, which he was out in the field today warming up, when he is able to go, that's going to take this offense to another level. So looks good today, and you got three dudes who are kind of waiting, kind of coming as cavalry over the hill, that'll keep pushing this thing forward.
Yeah, and I did think Kevin Stefanski did a pretty good job. I thought he was in his bag at moments today in terms of the play calling, using the extra linemen because you didn't have Njoku as extra blockers. That was an obvious thing that they deployed a lot today. And there were some other things. He tried his reverse play that he always tries at Jerry Jeudy. It did not work very well.
Throw it in the trash, burn
but
it.
Again, there was a lot more motion. There was a lot more stuff downfield. Guys kind of coming open and Deshaun seeing him and making the throws easy for him. And then the only other really blunder. Well, and I'll say this too. Stefanski went for it twice on 4th down today. Yeah. And the first time it was just a straight up QB sneak with Jameis. Second time was like 4th and 1 from like their own 36. And he ran that play, but with a variation where they handed it off to Ford, and he broke free for a huge gain on the sideline, like 36 yards or something like that. And I thought it was a really good design to change it up from what they saw previously. So, and they're using Jameis in that way to sort of be the QB sneak quarterback to keep Deshaun healthy. There was a lot of good, and the only thing that almost spoiled it was him running a pass play on that 3rd down on the final drive of the game. Deshaun tries to throw it away, and the clock stops, and you kind of give the Jags a free stoppage there. That was the only moment where I was like, Stefanski, what are you doing? But other than that, I thought he had a pretty good game today as well.
Dude, I crack up every time that we go for it on 4th down and we're in a QB sneak scenario and they sub Deshaun out. This is just a personal. I can't wait for that clause in his contract to be one day released to the public where it says he can't do a quarterback sneak because it doesn't make any sense. Joe Flacco did it last year.
I'm waiting for the day where he pulls what he pulled with Jacoby Brissett a couple years ago, and it's like a QB sneak situation. He throws a fade down the sideline because we know that's coming at some point too. That's another thing in Kevin Stefanski's back pocket. All right, guys, we appreciate you jumping on in with us to talk about the offense, talk about Deshaun. Really good stuff today in spurts. Still some room for growth, but I think the overall takeaway here is that you saw some steps taken by this group today. And I think Browns fans should be pretty happy about that. For Anthony and myself, we'll continue to give you some more coverage here. We'll talk about the difference in the halves between these two teams, or between the Browns in the first half versus the second half coming up. We also do want to touch on just overall what it means to be 1-1 on the season and get that crucial win and avoid going 0-2. So we still got some good stuff coming your way at the Browns on SI, Cleveland Browns on SI YouTube channel. And of course, you can follow along with all things Cleveland Browns over at Cleveland Browns on SI for all the best coverage of your Cleveland Browns.